Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Caleb, and that's Josh. Josh?
Oh, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
No. Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Caleb. Josh is going to be gone this week, so you're in with me, so buckle in. Today we're going to talk about, yes indeed, a Huskers win. Well, myself, how am I doing? Well, I'm doing pretty great. It was a very exciting Saturday. Nebraska got its first FBS win in 364 days. And man, it was needed. Memorial Stadium was rocking in another night game, and Mickey Joseph, well, he's now 1-1. The Huskers are now tied first in the Big Ten West. Seeing Trev Alberts hand out the game ball to Mickey Joseph at the end of the game was very exciting. Things you love to see. Also, it was pretty cool after walking out of Memorial Stadium about 45 minutes later. Saw Casey Thompson still signing autographs for kids and taking selfies, which was a pretty cool thing too. And the team, they really stepped up. Indiana, we knew coming in that their secondary was a weakness, and Trey Palmer delivered with a giant game. His first game over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown, and just another great play from Anthony Grant as well. 120 yards per game. He is 6th in the country right now in yards per game for a running back. We just have two great weapons. And Nebraska kept feeding him, and Casey Thompson probably played his worst game of the season. And hey, he even got benched, which is super wild to see. He said after the game he liked to be coached tough though in this press conference, and Mickey Joseph said no one's above getting benched. And yes, we fumbled after, and you know what, Casey, he came back in, calmed down, and delivered a great second half kind of after that point. So again, the offense was really exciting for us to break that 28-point threshold to get to 35. And again, 7 of those points too, hey, wasn't the offense. For the first time since 2009, Nebraska's special teams made a play. Bill Bush switching up the defense on who's starting, him and Mickey Joseph, trying new things. We're trying to figure it out. We're learning on the fly, and instead of this, the Scott Frost era, which we have who we have, and we're ride or die, sticking through at the end. Mickey Joseph is throwing tons of different guys in there, just trying to see what fits. And it's worked out really well for Nebraska thus far. It's just been very exciting to see. And you know what? The defense, I think the live tackling is helping as well. Reimer have his best game. That incredible interception, the forced fumble, picks it up off the guy. Just an incredible hit. Nick Henrich, who has been awful. He records his second best game by PFF ever in his career. Just things you love to see. His tackling was the best in the team. And this was a guy at the beginning of the season who led the team in missed tackles. So it just goes to show we've been putting guys in different spots. And again, Indiana's offensive line, they are not amazing. This is probably the worst offensive line we'll see. So I'll put a little asterisk there. But still, our defense still had to go make plays, still had to go show up. We see Garrett Nelson with a couple sacks. Isaac Gifford had his best game. And then we also see, again, those new guys coming in. Ativa Mogul-Clements, somebody that Josh and I have been harping on. Hey, he should probably see more field snaps. He gets his most snaps that he's seen in a game, and he looked really good. And Jamari Butler, he played a couple snaps too. He's graded really high whenever he's coming. Love to see more of him as we move on with this season. But man, the defense, a much needed improvement. We go from 515 yards a game giving up to the country to now 469. Nice. So we're making the right movement there. Again, our defense is now only like 107th in the country in yards given up. We're moving in the right direction slowly but surely. And again, that second half was exciting. We really shut them down. Bazelak, if given time, could have been a solid quarterback. We just really didn't give him that. And again, we kind of capitalized off Indiana's bad offensive line. Ty Robinson got a sack just completely unblocked, which is very exciting. And then finally getting some special teams plays, something we have not seen in Nebraska in way too long. That just equates into a win. They were on the 1-yard line, the 2-yard line a couple times. And, again, that's where the blocked punt came in. That's where we got great field position. And Trey Palmer also returning punts as well. That gave us a great position to do that. And we got our most yards returning a punt in 4 years at Nebraska. Again, just so many positives, special teams, defense, and offense. Was Indiana the best team in the Big Ten? Definitely not, but still a respectable opponent, ranked pretty close to us. And again, just to be able to get this win is just the positive momentum that Mickey Joseph and company needs. To roll in this next week on a short week against our opponent Rutgers. Right now, we're favored by 3 points according to Vegas. The over-under is 50.5. Let's just start here in the offensive line. Again, like Indiana, like Nebraska, their offensive line has not been that great. This is a place of attack for Nebraska. Just think there's going to be a lot of opportunities here. Their schedule thus far this season has been Boston College, where they won 22-21. They capitalized on a lot of turnovers. Their offense has not looked that great. Their best offensive game was versus Wagner, where this really inflates a lot of their offensive stats, 66-7. But then at Temple, it was 16-14. Then after their non-con, they had a couple very tough games against some of the best defenses in the Big Ten. Versus Iowa, 27-10 loss. And then at OSU, 49-10 loss. Their one touchdown there in that Ohio State game was off a special teams mishap, a muffed punt. And that's how they scored their touchdown. So again, they have been opportunistic with the turnovers, but their offense alone has really not been going for them. And that's because their quarterback situation has been quite wild. So Noah Vedral had an upper extremity issue, an upper abdomen issue before the season. So he was not starting. He got a couple snaps against Ohio State. Greg Schiano just said that was just to see if he was able to go. He only got 5 snaps. He still wasn't healthy enough. They're trying to work him back in. So right now they tried to figure it out. And then the other quarterback, Gavin Wimsatt, who looked very solid against Wagner. Noah Vedral, 6th-year senior. Gavin Wimsatt was their first 4-star recruit quarterback in a long time. And then now they're down to Evan Simon. This is probably not where Rutgers wants to be. And this is definitely shown. They're like 107th in yards per game in the Power 5, only averaging 331. Again, and that's including that big Wagner win. So it really has been a mess for Rutgers thus far at the quarterback spot. And again, that gives us some opportunity. While he has looked good and stepped in to throw, again, there's just been some really bad missed throws from him, some really bad reads. They've tried to use kind of this multiple quarterback system here. Even their tight end, Langen, has gotten some snaps at QB under the Wildcat. That just goes to show how barren they are at this position. Their offensive line, 58th of 65 in the Power 5. But yeah, their offense is really interesting right now. They run a lot of Wildcat. They have to try to find creative ways. We've seen them run a lot of reverses and end arounds. Again, just anything to get this offense going while they're just healing up at the quarterback spot. Their best weapon has been Aaron Crookshanks on the season. Their best wide receiver. Again, that's a transfer from Wisconsin. He's kind of their deep threat. They've handed the ball off to him a couple times. He has 20 receptions, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then at the running back position for Rutgers, they actually have a few different guys. Samuel Brown has ended up with the most, but they're kind of a running back by committee. They handed off to Samuel Brown, Kyle Monagai, and Al-Shadi Salam, who also had a really good game and has looked pretty solid for them. We should see a mixture of all 3 of these guys on Saturday. Al-Shadi Salam looked really good this last week on some of those carries. But again, I think all of them present some different challenges. And then Langen at tight end, as aforementioned, he can definitely be a problem. Reimer's going to have his hands full. The linebacking core in general covering him as a whole. That's definitely their other strength. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, it's definitely more of Rutgers' strength. They have a lot of different guys, although they have also had struggles on injuries too. Shaquan Loyal is one of their better cornerbacks, but he has been banged up. But he's been kind of a breakout player. He just started against Iowa. Hopefully he is okay. He was hurt for the Ohio State game. But he definitely looks to be one of their better players. I will say that also the secondary has been where Rutgers has found the most success in blitzing. They run a lot of wolf blitzes. Tanner Longerbeam and Shaquan Loyal have been really solid at wolf blitzing, and this is something that Nebraska needs to watch out for, something that our offensive line needs to be talking about in the film room. And Anthony Grant as well. Also shout out Anthony Grant this last week, had an awesome pancake. But also a little bit like Indiana, they haven't had that great of safety play in coverage. The Ohio State game, you watch, even the Iowa game, there was actually a lot of blown coverages. They found a lot of success in those like 15-yard crossing routes in between the safeties and the corners. In a lot of zone coverage has been where a lot of teams have eaten, including Iowa, who they really used Sam Laporta a lot on these tight end routes, whether there was crossing routes or seams. They seem very exposed at this place, and I think Travis Vokalek can have a really big game. While their front seven has, again, been pretty solid in blitzing, and they tackle pretty okay, their secondary not as well. So I think, again, this is definitely the weakness, which again bodes well for Nebraska. You know, they'll have some tape on what we did against Indiana, but if their guys can be able to stop it in a week is really the story. Hopefully our offensive line can step up a little bit for Casey Thompson, show a little bit more, and there's a really good chance here for Nebraska, again, for Trey Palmer to have a big game. We know that Mark Whipple likes to feed one specific wide receiver who he feels has the most talent. At this point, we think it's Trey Palmer. He's definitely been targeted a good amount. Again, breaking the 100-yard seal for the first time in his career. And I think there's just more to come. If we can give him time, give Casey time, I think there is a lot to be had here with the Rutgers secondary. All right, with that being said, let's head into the X factors of the game. Where is the game changers? I kind of teased it a little bit here with Vokalek. I think he's the X factor. Again, we saw Sam Laporta have so much success. I think Vokalek can be just as talented, again, against their linebackers as well. And the thing is, we have a quarterback, unlike Iowa. He can throw the deep ball. He's a lot more accurate. You saw Ohio State do the same thing too, just those 15-yard routes with their wide receivers. And again, just that game break ability with our special weapons that we have. I think that the passing game is where we beat the Scarlet Knights. And again, Anthony Grant's just that consistent thing of, we're more of a Big Ten team now. We kind of get our licks in the first half with our running backs. We kind of set it up. We have some great passing opportunities in the first half. And in the second half, it's just downhill sledding with Anthony Grant. Again, we saw Mickey Joseph just look like a Big Ten coach. We're going to burn the clock out. We're going to have a 7-minute drive. It's going to be Anthony Grant in the fourth quarter for 15 carries. You're going to like it, and we're going to score a touchdown. I think we can do more of the same this week with Anthony Grant against Rutgers. I know they have a solid front seven. They're going to have to respect us in the passing game, unlike they have with, some of those other teams. And I think it's just really going to be enough. I think Boston College just wasn't quite balanced enough as a team, not balanced enough while they had a pretty solid passing attack. And the thing is, even just with the passing attack and not having a great run game, Boston College still should have won that game. It was just turnovers. And obviously, like every game, it's always turnovers in football. That's a giant X factor, but I truly believe that our defense is going to have some opportunities against Simon and whoever else is going to be running at quarterback. It can really be anyone. If Federal gets back in time, I think our defensive line is going to have a chance here to get a couple sacks, and I think that's the X factor of how we get this, whether it's a strip sack or, again, Reimer makes a great play in coverage. We saw him have his best coverage game. Or, we see Malcolm Herzog step up. Nebraska's biggest weakness is the offensive line on this team. How can our offensive line improve? Mickey Joseph is trying. He said, he's put in Hunter Anthony. He's switching him out. We saw Ethan Piper get the start. We saw Turner Corcoran get kicked off the field after the 2 personal fouls. Again, we're trying everything we can here at offensive line. I know Mickey's doing what he can. If we get beat, that's one thing, but just letting them through without knowing what we're supposed to do, what the job is, that's another. And if we can keep just mitigating that risk, Casey looked better in the second half, getting the ball out a little bit faster, which is just something he's going to need to get better at. But in the second half, they did a little bit. And if that can happen here, where we just get a little bit more time, a little bit better at the offensive line this year, that will be enough against Rutgers. Now, for the predictions, I'm predicting for Josh. Let me just shrink down my chair a little bit, get a little bit shorter for you. All right. Josh predicts 31-24. He loves the passing matchups in this game to take advantage of the safeties, stick to Casey getting in rhythm, start off with quick passes. He's a little worried about the road game, he says, can still cause trouble. I know it's a new coach. Hopefully we can kind of, again, get that Scott Frost washed clean off us of being a bad road team. He said still very concerned about the O-line and the run game against a very respectable front seven. Rutgers has reliable enough playmakers to make a few drives on our inconsistent defense. Should find one or two big plays on a misdirection. He's definitely fearing those end arounds. And again, Greg Schiano is going to throw a lot of things at us to try and win this game. He's a good Big Ten coach. If special teams execute and we take care of the ball, we could blow them out, is what he says. Especially if we get the QB going. 31-24, Nebraska. Go Big Red. What do I predict for this game? Yeah. Sit back up in my chair. I predict Nebraska wins 28-17. We will give up one touchdown, I believe, off a turnover in a bad spot. Again, Rutgers has seemed very opportunistic. Their defense has looked solid enough. They have really made great use of the mistakes. But I believe our defensive line is restored with some confidence. And I think that, this will only get them to go a little bit harder this next week in practice. Practice has actually really helped. I can see a difference in our linebackers. And I believe, again, Trey Palmer and Anthony Grant, also then Casey Thompson as well. I think we have the three best players on the field. Again, Mickey Joseph and Mark Whipple have shown that they can feed those featured players, those star players for us. And I think that's going to really be a difference for Nebraska. Again, I am still worried about our offensive line. I'm hopeful, again, just seeing the changes, seeing that we're trying new things and with a bunch of different guys to figure it out, to figure out the best combination to try and win us football games. Again, that just gets me really hopeful as a Nebraska football fan to see that our coaches are trying everything they can to figure this out to win us games. And I just know that's going to pay dividends as the year goes on. We're only going to get better. And I think that that is going to happen for us here. The only nervous thing is turnovers. If we get to that 3 turnover territory, again, against this Rutgers team who's been very opportunistic, it's bad news bears for us as a team. So I predict Nebraska to win 28-17. Again, a little bit less. I think this front seven does give us some problems, but I believe in the end, our best players will win out and Nebraska gets the dub. 2 Big Ten wins in a row. And again, still top of the Big Ten West. But as always, guys, let us know what you would think down below. We'll be in the comments section. We'd love to see what you guys have to say. Subscribe as well. A lot of you watch the videos. Not as many of you are subscribed. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like as well. Turn on the notifications. But as always, guys, I'm Caleb. Josh is elsewhere, but he'll be back. This has been Backseat Sports. We'll see you next video. Go Big Red.